You're listening to episode 73, Boosting Your Confidence and Overcoming Negative Beliefs with Mike Goncalves. Welcome to the Grass Gets Greener podcast, the show for survivors by survivors. I'm your host, Melissa Wilson, a bullying survivor and anti-bullying advocate. And each week you'll hear from a survivor who has overcome a traumatic experience to go on to not only survive, but thrive, so that you can too, starting now. Hey there, welcome, and thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. Sorry that I wasn't able to get one out to you last week, but I've got a good one for you today. Before we get into that, I just want to let you know, though, that today's episode is brought to you by audible.com. If you don't know of Audible, they are the premier provider of digital audiobooks. I signed up with them to get you a free audiobook download, along with a 30-day free trial. They have over 180,000 titles, including some that have been mentioned on this show in the past, that you can choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or whatever you're using as an MP3 player. So if this is something that interests you and you want to check it out, all you have to do is go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/audible, and you can go ahead and get your free audio download along with that 30-day free trial. So this week I'm joined by Mike Goncalves of the Wellness Bucket, and it was really fun for me to have Mike on the show because Mike is actually an online friend of mine, and we've known each other for a couple of years, and we've been following each other's journeys. And Mike's really been a source of inspiration for me with what he's doing. And I think that you're going to find him inspiring as well. And he definitely has a lot of energy, and he's really passionate about the message that he's trying to spread. But it wasn't until recently that I heard him talking about how when he was growing up, he was told that he wasn't good enough and that he wasn't smart enough. And this ended up impacting like all areas of his life for about 25 years. And I thought that it would be great to have him on the show to talk about that, because I think that that's something that a lot of us can relate to. So if you've ever been told that you are not good enough or you're not smart enough and you can't achieve certain things in life, then this episode is particularly for you. We're going to talk about how we come to believe the stories that are told to us and how easy it is to feed negative beliefs and how those stories and those beliefs can take on a life of their own and end up holding us back. And Mike's going to share with us the moment when everything started to change for him, though, and he started to break free of those beliefs. And we're going to talk about the power of people believing in you and you believing in yourself and how important that is. And Mike's also going to share with us what he does when the doubts and the fears creep into his mind today, because of course that happens for all of us, you know? And it's kind of funny because what he does is exactly the same thing that I do. And we're just going to talk about so much good stuff. And like I said, I think you're really going to find it inspiring and enjoy this one. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Mike on. Mike, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining me here today to share your story with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Melissa. It's an absolute pleasure, so thank you.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have you here because you and I have known of each other and have been following each other online for probably like almost 2 years now. I remember that it was right around when I first started blogging back in 2014, and we got connected in a Facebook group, and I've been following your journey and the work you're doing today, and you're always a source of inspiration for me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I've been following you as well, so to see how well you've done and to get the opportunity to be on your show, man, what a pleasure. So thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wrote this blog post recently called "The Single Most Important Step to Take Right Now That'll Guarantee You'll Achieve All Your Goals and Faster Too." Now, we'll get into what that thing is as we're talking here today, because I would say it's not just important for achieving our goals, but for anything. But in that post, you were talking about how when you were growing up, you were told that you weren't smart enough, you weren't good enough, and then this affected you in all aspects of your life for years to come because it's the story you came to believe about yourself. And I want to have you tell us more about that in just a second. But when I read that, I said, I have to have Mike on here because this is something that my audience is going to be able to relate to. You know, when we grow up bullied or abused, we get told hurtful things like this, either directly or indirectly, and that shapes who we become and what we believe about ourselves, and it can hold us back. But Mike, you've been able to overcome those beliefs to become successful today and to be helping and inspiring others through what you do. And I know that's, what we're going to do here today as well. So Mike, if it sounds good to you, I'd like to start at the beginning and have you tell us that story of when you were told these things that someone should never be told, never mind when you're just a kid. And then we'll go from there. What do you think? How does that sound to you?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm more than happy to share that with you. You want me to just dive right in?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, if we have to go back, if we're going to take it back, I want to say it was about, I was 8, 9, 10. It's probably like what, third, fourth, fifth grade, right in there. And, I'm always quick to say, Melissa, and I'm not embarrassed to say it, it's like I was never the smartest kid in school. School was never I don't know. I just never really meshed well with classroom setting and learning. So, I wasn't the greatest kid in school, maybe like C student, D student. And, so in not so many ways, I was told by the teachers I had, even the principal and the guidance counselors, like, in a roundabout way, hey man, you're not really, you're not really the smartest kid. You're not really, you're not the good enough kid to excel in the classroom. Chances are you're not going to do so well. And even I remember even like, talking as far as guidance counselors and career, pretty much telling me you're not really going to go far. And that's not really a cool thing to hear. No one wants to hear that. I mean, an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, that's not the best thing to feed a kid. I mean, let alone, no one needs to hear that, let alone a kid. But anyways, unfortunately, that's what I was fed. And, you never think of being, it's not that I don't think my teachers were bullying me, but I mean, essentially it's not a good message. It's a message that resonated with me and it affected me essentially almost like 25 years of my life. But, so that's what I was fed, Melissa. That's what I was fed. You're fed that as a kid, and all of a sudden you start to believe that. In all of my work, literally, I was like just a crappy student because that's what you believe. Like, hey, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. And but the one thing that always did help me was sports and fitness and health, and I'm sure we'll get into that as well. But so I just gravitated towards that. But really, like academically and just my own self-confidence, self-beliefs, they were just crappy. They were crappy. They were shattered. They were like, as a kid, if that's what you're told to believe, if that's what you start believing, then, it trickles into every aspect of your life. For me, it trickled into my relationships, even my career and, what I ended up doing, with my, when I went to school, further schooling, high school and college. So, even relationships, I'm not sure if I said that, but it definitely messed me up for years to come just because of the messages that were fed to me, as a kid, 8, 9, 10 years old. You're not good enough, smart enough. You're probably not going to do well in life, etc. So that's pretty much where, that's where things started as far as, if you want to call it whatever, bullying, talking down to, but that's where it started for me.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that is going to be a good thing for us at that point in our lives, I mean, how different would it be, right? If you were told that you were going to be good enough, you were going to be awesome, right? And you were going to achieve great things in your life. I mean, don't you think that would have sent you down a completely different path, instead of struggling for 25 years?
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. Like I always say, look, so there's two ways of being, right? Like I wasn't like a troublemaker kid, right? I mean, I was just, and if you're gonna fault me for trying to make kids laugh, because that was the thing. I was like kind of like the jokester, and I like to make kids laugh in the classroom. So, if anything, I was just doing that at not the right moment. Maybe it wasn't the right moment when during reading class or spelling class, but it wasn't like I was a punk, right? Starting fights, defacing property, or spray painting, stealing. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just kind of a kid. I had a little, maybe too much energy in the classroom. So, right, if the approach the teachers would take and say, hey, Mike, you know what? Look, maybe this isn't the right time, but, and if I didn't do so well at something, if they just said, hey, you know what, that wasn't so good, but look, wow, look at this over here, that this is good. If they had just focused on maybe some of the things that I was doing well at, and like I said, I was always good at sports. And, if they said, hey, you know what, we noticed in the schoolyard, you're always like the leader. You're always a captain. All the kids always pick you as a captain to be one of the, the football captains. You have leadership skills. I mean, can you imagine all of a sudden you tell a kid that not that he's a loser and he's not smart enough, good enough, but instead he's displaying qualities of a leader, and his peers around him are like, wow, they're always picking you to be the captain. I mean, think about it. I agree with you. Like, what would that have done for my self-esteem if I went into fourth, fifth, sixth, high school, college, thinking, hey man, I'm a leader. I'm a leader. I mean, yeah, it would have been way different.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, and you end up, I think, focusing more on the negative things that are being told to you and the things that you're believing about yourself to be true, that you can't, be good enough, instead of focusing on, the things that you were excelling in, right? Because that's not where they were putting the focus. They're more bringing attention to, how you weren't doing well in certain things, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then you're guided, and then the unfortunate part is you're guided by these stories, because that happens to you, and then like I can just talk about myself, is just then you create these stories in your head, right? And all of a sudden it's just these stories that you create. It's like, hey, not good enough, smart enough, not going anywhere, loser, whatever it may be. You create these stories, and these stories stay with you for whatever, for like into your later years, and it trickles into every aspect of your life. And it's not that it's even true, but just because of the experiences you had, like mine was the experiences I just shared with you, but because of those crappy experiences, it feeds these ideas and these thoughts that I had, which weren't true, but because that's what I believed, it affected every aspect of my life. So that's the really crappy part.
Yeah, exactly. And they just kind of take on a life of their
Oh my
own.
God, yes.
um, Now, did you continue to be told these things later on as you were progressing through school? Or did they kind of stop? Did you become a better student? Like, what happened there?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So what happened is, like, because I had such crappy belief in myself because of these stories that were told, and what you believe, and your confidence is crappy. You don't believe in yourself. You think you're mediocre at best. That's what I thought. But because that's what I displayed, like I never really tried. So like as I progressed through, like into like junior high and into high school, and even just at the beginning of a college, it changed. It started changing somewhat in college, but before that, like like I said, junior high and college, it's like excuse me, high school, I didn't have that confidence, so I didn't put forth much effort, because I was like, well, I'm not really a smart kid. I can't do this work. And it's almost like you take on that life because that's who you believe you are. So all of a sudden, teachers see that, they don't spend much time with you. They, at least the ones I had, didn't. They're like, you know what? This kid's not even trying. He's probably just a punk. He's not trying. He doesn't give a crap. He doesn't even want to be here, which is not true. I wanted to be there, but that's just what I felt. I didn't really try because I felt like, hey, I can't do this work. I'm not smart enough. So they were kind of going off of my vibe, because my vibe was like, you know what? I'm not really a smart kid. I can't do this work. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do well. I mean, of course I wanted to do well. Who doesn't want to be told that they're awesome, that they can do it, and be cheered on and motivated and encouraged? Of course I wanted that. But because I display these characteristics that I didn't give a crap, because I just felt like I was dumb and couldn't do it, the teachers took it as, this kid doesn't care, and they didn't try with me. So even though I wasn't fed more like that, you can't do it, they just kind of went off of what I was, my lack of energy and attention, and commitment to do the work, and they really didn't bother with me much. So it was kind of like a lose-lose situation for both the professors and teachers and myself.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of became the expectation for you, and then
Yes.
and then you were kind of, living up to that expectation, or maybe we should say living down to that expectation, right? And just
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's I forgot who said it, but Melissa, you just nailed it. Like, it's interesting how it works, because it's like they say, like, we'll do everything in our power to be congruent with who we believe ourselves to be. Meaning, like, if someone thinks they're not smart, they will do everything in their power to act in that way that's congruent with not being smart. If someone believes they're like, hey, I'm just an overweight person, that's who I am, they'll do everything in their power subconsciously to stay a heavy person, because that's who they believe themselves to be. It's so true. We do everything in our power to hold to what we believe who we are, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And in me, it was like, hey, you're a kid that's not really smart enough, good enough. So I did everything in my power to hold to that because that was my belief, and it's crappy.
Yeah, what's that quote? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yes, yes, yes,
Or is that
correct.
a Henry
It
Ford
is
quote?
correct. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What kind of messages were you getting from your parents at home? Were they supportive of you, or did they kind of feel the same way as your teachers did?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I come from a Portuguese background, right? So my parents, very, great parents. They always loved me. They worked hard, but they pretty much just went off of what the teachers were telling them. So it's like, I would come home with progress reports and detentions, and so they would just see that, and all of a sudden, then I would get grounded, and I would be, scolded and punished, and so what I mean. It just fed that whole world. It's like, oh, look, see, now I'm not good enough, smart enough. Look, now I'm getting punished at home. It was a pretty crappy spot, even at home. And again, I don't fault my parents, but even at home, and it's not. Again, I want to keep saying it. I don't fault them. They did nothing wrong. But you come home and it wasn't like, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. Look, you didn't do so well here, but maybe this happened. But you know what? You'll do better tomorrow. Or there wasn't that encouraging and that motivation, and that I wasn't being fed like positive, encouraging stories. Not that they didn't want to. They just kind of were going off of what the teachers were telling them, and it wasn't I wasn't in like it was just a pretty crappy situation. I wasn't kind of in a no win situation, if you will.
Right, so you're just kind of stuck in this cycle that you're not able to break out
Oh,
of because nobody's really believing in you and you're getting punished for it on top of
yeah,
that.
yeah, that's great, right? Jesus.
Yeah. But that goes to show just, how these negative beliefs can kind of just get out of control and take over our lives,
Definitely.
and especially when we're young, that's really a harmful thing. Um,
Definitely.
so how were you impacted going into your adulthood? Because you said you were affected for like 25 years. So what did that look like? I mean, I know you talked about relationships and, I believe with work as well. But what, specifically did that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, geez, I could really apply it to every aspect of my life, and I will. I'll touch upon each one just so you can see exactly how it trickled into every aspect. But coming off of that from grade school, and then in junior high and high school, like going into college, like it's like I really didn't believe much in, like, oh, I don't think I'm going to get in. I mean, I applied to college, I didn't think I was going to get in, and that's a whole another fiasco. I mean, I ended up getting in, but again, even I just didn't think I was going to do well enough, and I discovered health and fitness in college, and that just pretty much changed my world too. But that's a whole different story. We can talk about that in a little bit. But so getting into college, I didn't think I'd even get in. I got lucky. I got in. We'll just put it that way. When I got out of college, I kept getting just mediocre jobs. Like I knew I was better than the jobs I was getting, but I just knew it. But because that belief was like, no, no, this mediocre job over here you're doing, that's pretty much all you can do. And that's so, because that's what my belief, I always continue to have these mediocre jobs. And I mean, even relationships, my relationships are mediocre. It's like, I went through a marriage, a divorce, and that was probably because of that whole idea. Like, oh well, see, this is what I deserve, because it's like, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve to be happy and have that. In business and entrepreneurship, I started some businesses, didn't really believe in it, didn't believe in myself. It's like, it was like that struggle. Like I knew I could do it, and I went after it, but that underlying belief that was like, you're not good enough. It's almost like I was like fooling myself. Like I wanted to do it and I believed I could do it, but those messages that were fed to me just were still there. Like I was battling those, and that it's the shitty part is they kept winning. I couldn't fight them off. They just kept winning. And even in finances, like I just couldn't get ahead. I kept acquiring debt because I'm like, oh, well, see, I'm just mediocre, so of course I'm not going to have money, and of course I'm in debt. That makes sense because I'm not smart. I'm not good enough to to be financially well off. So it literally just trickled into every every aspect of my life. And I know I kind of went on a rampage there, but literally that's how it affected everything.
No, thank you for taking us through that. I mean, it shows us how we can be held back by these things,
Absolutely.
and you felt like, the things that were happening to you, things that were going wrong, that was a result of, of not being good enough and living up to those expectations that people kind of set forth for you when you were younger.
Right.
Um, but obviously you did start to break free of that. You did start to get unstuck. And so when did that start happening? What was it? Was there like a defining moment for you, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So the one thing that kind of kept me, the one thing I always credit, and that's Melissa, that's why I'm in the world of health and fitness today, and why I have the wellness bucket and I do what I do, because the one thing, my saving grace was health and exercise and movement. And by me doing that, how I always say it pretty much just saved me. It kept me level headed, and it kept me thinking positive and continuing to go forward, even though like I was fed these stories, and even though like in back of my mind I created these crappy stories. Like even in the classroom, if I was told like I wasn't good enough, smart enough, couldn't, the one thing I knew I could do and no one could stop me from doing was going out in that schoolyard and throwing the football as far as I could, running as fast as I could, being the fastest kid in the schoolyard, being picked by the other kids as captain. So that always made me feel good. So even though a lot of other things weren't going well, like that always made me feel good. And it always gave me, a confidence booster, even though I wasn't getting anything else. And I kept on with that. So it's funny because I always held on to that. I always held on to that. As young as 8, I'd go run in the schoolyard. Ride my bike as fast as I could because that gave me the motivation and my own, self motivation, self encouragement. And I just carry that forth into like, high school sports. And then even into college, I got into sports and fitness management because again, it was like, hey, sports medicine, that's, sports, that's always it was always there for me. I always put it that way. It was always there for me. So, because I changed, it's a physiological thing. It's like, you change your body's going to work for you to kind of release endorphins and serotonin and dopamine, all these things that are going to make you feel good. So even though you're getting fed crappy messages, if you can at least move your body, things are going to happen within it to at least give you that feel good feeling. So that always helped me out. But I can tell you that the changing moment for me, and this is where it gets really cool, and the power that of people believing in you, the power there is in that. I remember when I moved out to California after graduate school, I was working for, again, a gym doing, personal training. And I had a client, and I hope, I have this hope that one of these days she's going to hear me on a podcast. Maybe it's this one, and she's going to reach out to me. Her name was Barbara Benedict, and she was a client of mine. And I remember, I'll never forget, this was the year 2000. I had just moved out to California. I was working for a gym, and we were working out for maybe a couple of months. And she finally, one day, she looked at me. She said, "Hey, Mike." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Why are you working here?" And I was like, "What do you mean that, this is my job? This is what I do." She goes, "No, no, no." She goes, "Why are you working for this gym?" And I just looked at her. I don't know what she meant. She goes, "You are so much better than you think." She goes, "Why are you here?" She goes, "You should be working for yourself." She goes, "You are so much better than you think." And Melissa, let me tell you, when you go from not ever having anyone tell you those kind of words to having someone look at you with that conviction and tell you that you're awesome, that you're better than you think, and that you should be doing bigger and better things, let me tell you, there is no greater, more amazing feeling. And from that day forward, that day forward, she actually gave me a book. Like the next time I saw her, it was like a personal development book. And from that day forward, I went down the path of just bettering myself, my mindset, what I thought, and that was the beginning of changing my life. And that's where it started. That was kind of like my aha moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely shows the power of, having someone believe in you. Um, and I mean, did it seem strange to you to like hear that though, since that must have been so foreign for you to hear something like that when you've been told, these opposite things.
Yeah, well, yeah, it felt well. Here's how I took it. It was strange, but it felt good. So because like it was like a part of me that always believed like that believes that. A part of me always believed that, but then again, there was those underlying stories that I've been fed that were created, that were there, that said, no, silly, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You can't do that. But again, the other part of me always wanted to believe that I could. So it was that battle. So all of a sudden, it was almost like I had backup. I had someone.
You had validation.
Yeah, I had someone like helping me. Like, no, now there's two of us that are ready to squash these other beliefs. So it felt weird, but it felt good, because it was almost like you said, validation to this other part of me that wanted to believe that I could and I would and I had the ability, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's great. And another thing that you said there, in the beginning when you started to answer the question, was about how you had something that you were kind of holding on to, when you were younger. You always knew that you were good with something. You were good with sports. And that was something that you held on to. So even though you were being fed these negative things, I guess there was one thing that you were still able to hold on to, and maybe that kind of, kept the spark alive in you that, one day you would be good enough, to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And I think that that's really important. And I think for someone who might be going through a situation right now where they're feeling like they're not good enough and they're not smart enough and whatever, they're being told by people, look for that one thing that you are good at, and then focus on that, and use that to kind of prove your worth to yourself, right?
100%. And what the unfortunate thing is, Melissa, is, and I go, and this even for me, it's like the thing you're good at, because you are good at it and it comes so naturally to you, you usually think nothing of it. And that's kind of like the crummy part, because what you do really well, what I do really well, what someone else does really well, because you do it so well, you think it's nothing. Meanwhile, like, you do that thing really well, you do it better than others, but you think nothing of it because it comes so naturally to you. So I believe, Melissa, there is literally, and I say this, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I believe there is greatness in all of us. There is awesomeness in all of us. We all have greatness in all of us, and everyone has something different. Mine could be sports, Melissa, yours could be like podcasts, and someone else could be whatever it may be, handball, someone else could be kayaking. We all have like these amazing abilities in us, but it's just a matter of believing that it's there, and believing that is great, and not just, it is just what it is. No, it isn't just what it is. Like, you're really good at that. Don't take your talents lightly, because what you think nothing of other people around you will probably, I always say, listen to what others tell you, not the negative Nellies, but the true friends, the ones that are really there to encourage and motivate you. Listen to what they're saying, because the things that they're telling you, don't take them lightly and don't take them for granted, because there's something to be said. If you hear more often than not, hey, you're really good at that, you're really good at that, you're really good at that, you might want to listen, because chances are it's true,
Yeah, and you bring up a good point right there, that we're not always going to be able to recognize what we're good at, because we, just kind of take it for granted. So it means that you have to, really think about it, really sit down and think about what you're good at. And then, maybe other people are telling you that that's something that you're good at as well. And then there you go. You've found that one thing that you're good at that you can latch onto, like you did.
Absolutely. And we're, the school, Melissa, we're our hardest critics. I mean, I know I am. I'm my hardest critic. I'm going to always judge myself the toughest, right? I'm always going to grade myself the hardest. So I can respect that. But, as much as we can, maybe scrutinize ourselves and be tough on ourselves, let's also take the time to recognize the good stuff that we do, and the value that we bring, and the things that we do really well, because we're all so often, we're so quick to focus on the bad that we lose sight and we lose track of the good things that we do and the things that we are good at. So I just ask that maybe we have, and I always tell myself this, just make sure there's a balance there. Yeah, strive to be better. I respect that, but also don't lose sight of the things that you do really well and the things you are good at, and I think we all need to take some time to make sure we're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been very hard on myself at times as well, but
yeah,
it's so important to believe in yourself. We need to believe in ourselves if we're going to expect other people to believe in us, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I'll say one more thing. I got when I say I got fortunate, the one thing I latched onto obviously was like, fitness and running around. The one thing I happened to latch onto um, is also obviously now I know about it because it's what I do, it's my profession, but the power in exercise and just moving, because luckily I latched onto that, but it wasn't just like this thing that I was doing. It was actually my body was helping me. Like, they always say motion, movement, exercise affects emotion, or another way to put it is like the quickest way to change your psychology, like what you think and what you believe, is to change your physiology, like by movement with exercise. So luckily, because I moved, because I was running around, because I was exercising, like there was things going on internally. Like I said, I mentioned it earlier, endorphins, your serotonin, your dopamine levels, like physiological things were happening in me that were giving me a feel good feeling, that was raising my confidence level, like, and that really helped me. So I would say, to you, Melissa, to anyone in listening, is like one of the quickest ways to kind of change your psychology, what you think and believe, what you can and can't do, or what you believe about yourself, is to change your physiology with movement, with maybe going for a walk, or maybe going for a bike ride, maybe doing some swimming, just moving, because that in itself is going to help you tremendously to change your thoughts and your state of mind and your stories that you may have created that are just limiting and holding you back.
Yeah, it really is. I couldn't agree more. And it's something that I've been able to kind of see for myself as well. It's so important.
Sure.
So important. Now, one of the things that the story you shared with us touches upon is the importance of being around the right people, right? And being around those people who are going to support us and who are going to tell us that we're awesome, and I think that kind of ties us back to your article that I mentioned in the beginning, right? And do you want to say a little bit about that and how important that's been for you to get around the right people?
Oh yeah, I mean, environment is everything. Community, environment. One of my favorite quotes. I'm a big Jim Rohn fan. He's like I view him as like a role model and almost like a mentor to me. But Jim Rohn, one of my favorite quotes from him is like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So it's safe to say it's good to do a check of who you spend your time around, because if people around you are telling you you're dumb, you're stupid, you're not smart, you can't do it, telling you all the reasons why you're going to fail, and reminding you of why you failed in the past and why you can't, if that's what you're surrounded by, it's safe to say you're probably going to be held back. You're not going to excel and really tap into the greatness that you have. Myself, like for example, like I was around where I come from, like a part of Massachusetts where I'm from, it was kind of like just your working class. It wasn't that they were negative, but there was no encouragement, support, motivation. And it wasn't until I got around communities like that, I would probably say like middle to late 2000, that I started getting around communities like that, people who had that same mindset to believed what I believed, and like had that motivating spirit, that encouraging spirit, like, hey, you can do it. Here's all the reasons why you're awesome and you can do it. I mean, that literally changed everything for me. And I think I shared with you, Melissa, I had an aha moment in 2000, and I had just had another one here actually 2 years ago. And again, it was one of these communities I was working with where they reminded me where, let's not fool ourselves. I still have my moments that creep up, that, hey, man, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. They still creep up. It's not like all of a sudden I'm over it completely, but I've gotten way better. And just 2 years ago, I was doing this assignment with a mastermind group I was part of, and one of the leaders of that group, asked me how they thought I was doing compared to the whole group, and there was 8 modules to complete, and I had finished all of them, and everyone else had gotten, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 of them done, and the leader asked me, hey, how do you think you're doing? And again, what did I say? Oh, I'm at about par. I think I'm average with everyone else. And she looked at me and she said, are you crazy? She goes, you have all 8 done. Everyone else has like 2 or 3, and you think you're average? So that was another aha, like, oh my God, there I am doing it again. And it was another aha moment, like, man, I am better than average. But again,
It's such a great example of it.
yeah, but if you don't have that kind of person, right? If I didn't have that leader, if I didn't have that group, telling me, encouraging me, I would never have that opportunity to have that moment. So yes, Melissa, it's so important to spend your time around people who believe in you, encourage you, motivate you, tell you you're awesome. it's necessary. I really think it's necessary if we have any chance at, being the best we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's so many ways today, to get involved in groups and, or just find people who are going to be that support for you and who are going to believe in you. No matter what kind of situation you might be in, maybe you're in a situation where the people, that you're around most of the day, they're not very supportive of you. But, if you can take the time to, maybe to go online and to connect with other people, they're going to be there. If you can find them, they're going to be there to support you.
Absolutely. I always say, Melissa, if people like sometimes like they don't know what, if your listeners are all over the world and sometimes they're from like a small community where like, yeah, but you don't understand. No one, this is, our community is tiny. No one, there's nothing here for me. Like, no one believes in me here. Everyone's negative or whatever.
Right.
And if anyone's listening, you don't know where to go, either reach out, Melissa, I know you can help them. Reach out to me. I will point you in the right direction. I will help you. Like if there is a will, if there is a will from anyone listening, there is a way, and I believe that. And if you need that way, reach out to me. I will help you. Hands down, and that's a promise to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if they're listening to the podcast, then they're in a good place right now, and yeah, definitely just continue to reach out and reach out to myself or any of my guests who you connect with, and we'll be there to support you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what else, Mike, has kind of helped you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, the biggie for me is just to constantly, obviously, like we talked about, like there's the biggies, obviously, it's my belief. And that's why, like I said, I have the wellness bucket, and I so believe in like creating daily sustainable health habits that, that feed your mind and through exercise, through movement. So exercise has helped me tremendously ever since, like I said, 8th grade, those crappy experiences I had. Number 2 is like, surrounding yourself with the right people. It's just surrounding yourself with the right people. And it's like, obviously everything we just talked about, if you're around people who are going to bring you down and tell you all the reasons why you can't, you're dumb and you're stupid and you won't, then you're going to be held back. But if you hang out with people that, are inspiring and motivating and encouraging you, then you have a chance at greatness to tap into the greatness you have. And the other thing that's helped me is constantly just realizing, for me, there's no such thing as like being like perfect. Like, you don't have to be perfect as long as you're making progress. Like, and like I share with you, like by no means am I, like, call it whatever you will, 100% cured or good, and I never have these thoughts and voices and self-doubt. Like it's not like it goes away forever, and it's okay. Just, I think it's just like, let's just be nice to ourselves and realize it's going to happen sometimes, and we don't have to be perfect. And I keep telling myself, hey man, you don't have to be perfect. Just keep trying to get better every day. Just try to get better every day. And I think by telling myself that, I kind of, I can breathe a sigh of relief, where it's like, hey, I don't have to be perfect as long as I just keep making progress, and and surrounding myself with the right people, keep exercising, and just every day keep getting better and better and better. If I can do those 3 things well every day, I think I'm headed down a good spot, Melissa. So that's kind of like the philosophies I've adapted, and it's helped me. And again, I'm not sitting here telling you I'm perfect, because I'm not, but I have come a long way, and I have a long more way to go. And I welcome that. I want to keep getting better, and I will.
Yeah, absolutely. So so you still have, every once in a while, like you'll, these beliefs will creep into your head, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, of course. I was just, for example,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just at a retreat this weekend where I was putting on, I provided like 2 different wellness workshops, and I've done this for a while now, but I couldn't sleep the 2 nights before with those thoughts. Hey, am I going to do well? Should I even be here? Why am I,
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, I know I can do it. I've done it, but again, you have those. It's going to come up. And that's fine. It's like, what do they say, Melissa? They say, hey, man, lean into fear. If it comes up, do it anyways. Feel the fear, but do it anyways. That's the quickest way to kind of overcome anything. Feel the fear and do it anyways. As hard as it is, the more we get used to doing that, the better off we'll be.
Yeah. Were there things that you did, specific things that you did when you were having these thoughts, when you were at this retreat that helped you to overcome that? Things maybe you wouldn't have done, 10 years ago or whatever?
Yeah. So that's good. That's a really good question. One, I kept I reminded myself like, hey man, you've done this before. This isn't the first time, and that kind of helps a little bit. But like I say, hey, you've done this. You've been there before. You're gonna do fine. You're gonna do fine. So I reminded myself of that. But actually, I'll share this, Melissa. You know what the biggest thing for me is? As soon as I get out of my own head, this works for me. As soon as I get out of my own head and I start thinking it's not about me, and I start thinking about the people that I can help and affect and make a positive impact on. As soon as I don't make it about me and it's about others who I can help and serve, it's very interesting how it works. As soon as I'm able to shift that, like my worries go away. All of a sudden, it's not about me if I'm good enough, if I can produce. All of a sudden, it's like, man, I need to come through because I need to help these people. They need me. And as soon as I flip that switch, it's pretty interesting how it works when and how you start thinking, because all of a sudden it's not about you. It's about you. It's not about you. It's about the other people that you're going to make a difference in their lives. And for me, as soon as I'm able to do that, it's crazy. But when I do that, like all of a sudden I'm not nervous anymore, and I'm more just focused on I need to serve these people to the best of my ability. So whether you're a mom, trying to do the best mom you can be, whether you're in your job, like, man, I need to really service my clients, or whether, you're a personal trainer, or whatever, you're trying to help your client. I think when you get out of your own head and you think about the people you're serving, for me, that's made a big difference.
Yeah, you know what? I do the same thing too,
Really?
and it definitely helps.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean those beliefs are always gonna kind of creep up, and I think even for people who maybe were never told those things when they were growing up, they have those same doubts and fears as well when they're in those types of situations. Um, but it's even more so, for us when we've been told those things. And it's just kind of like a natural reaction to just go there, and we have to like do things to work at it to make it not hold us back in that moment.
Absolutely.
But
And
yeah, go ahead.
one thing more I'll say, Melissa, is this, and actually, the reason I even bring this up is because recently, someone from my community reached out and said, because I had tried like a 30-day cold shower challenge, and anyways, I failed, and she reached out, and I shared it with my community, and she reached out saying, hey, Mike, wow, she goes, thanks for sharing that story. She goes, I didn't think, and I'm going to quote unquote, people like you like had, because I shared how like the little voice in my head saying don't do it, you can't do it, what are you doing, like got the best of me. That little voice got the best of me and it won. And I shared that with my community, and anyway, someone from my community said, hey, thanks so much for sharing that. I didn't realize, quote unquote, people like you had that little voice you struggled with. And the reason why I'm going to share that with you, Melissa, is because I honestly think, I don't care who you are, athlete, speaker, entrepreneur, extraordinaire, we all have those doubts. We all have that little voice that tries to keep us back, that we question ourselves. So whoever's listening, don't be fooled. We all have it. Some of us have it maybe more than others, but it's all there. Don't think for a second the athlete who's on the NBA taking that three-pointer is not thinking, holy cow, what if I miss this shot? What if I let my team down? Like, every great speaker you hear, they always tell you, man, I still get nervous when I get on that stage. Like, don't be fooled just because someone's like in a different level. We all have that little voice we struggle with. And the truth is, sometimes the little voice is going to win. And I don't like that, but it's just the truth. Sometimes it's going to win, but the goal isn't to win all the time. The goal is to win more often than the little voice wins. And if I can do that, if we can do that, I think we're doing pretty damn well. It'd be silly to think we're going to win all the time, but if we can win more often than not, I think we're in a good space. So whoever it is, you're not alone. I promise you're not alone. The people you think are the most confident also have that little voice that kind of tries to hold them back. I hope everyone realizes that.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
because that is definitely the
It's
truth.
true.
But yeah, sometimes we don't realize that or we forget that,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And sometimes knowing that, can make us feel a little better about ourselves sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say it, because sometimes like, oh, well, they don't, it's just me. No. We're all like that. And I'll say one more thing. Sometimes when you're feeling that, we sometimes don't want to tell others. And I actually myself personally have felt one of the best things to do is to talk to someone else about it, because more often than not, what you find is when you tell them about it, like, oh my God, you know what, that's happened to me too. And like, yeah, I'm like, oh really? And all of a sudden you realize, oh, they felt it too. And all of a sudden you can talk through it. And sometimes they even talk you through it and how they handled it. It's pretty powerful, man, when you actually admit it, not admit it, but like you just kind of tell someone about it. Because I think more, like I said, more often than not, all of us have that. We all experience that. So if we can talk to someone about it, I think it can be very helpful.
That's such a good point. I can say for myself personally, like, whenever I have those feelings, I try to keep them like a secret,
Yeah.
because it's like, because it feels like it's a weakness, and
Exactly.
you don't want to expose it.
Exactly.
But yeah, it can definitely help us to be vulnerable and to share how we're feeling, and then people are that's gonna allow people to be there to support us and make those feelings go away more quickly.
So true. And you nailed it. I think you nailed it, Melissa. When you said we view it as a weakness, I really think
Right.
that's what it is. I know for myself personally, like, oh my God, if I, like in January, I did like a 50-mile run, and I was so scared. I was so scared, but I was like, I can't tell people I'm scared. Like that's like a weakness. Like it's like a weakness. But it wasn't. So, and how, sure enough, when I told Kristen, my girlfriend who was with me, that, man, I'm like, I'm really scared. I'm really scared. And I opened up about it. It allowed me, one, to acknowledge it. So all of a sudden, just doing that felt a little better because I acknowledged it to someone else. And wouldn't you know it, when I told her about it, she actually consoled me and made me feel better and talked me through it, to the point where I, as fearful as I was, I got through it. But I wouldn't have had that opportunity to have her talk me through it if I hadn't, if I hadn't had, made the decision to tell her about it. So I agree with you. Let's not view it as a weakness. Let's view it as something that we all experience and talk through it, because I think there's power there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So it sounds like, just kind of over time, you've been able to build upon the experiences that you've had and gradually become more confident and have, greater self-esteem and become the person that you are today. Would you say that that's kind of how it's gone?
Yes, that's a very fair statement. And I just want to emphasize one thing again, and I know I keep going back to this just because I don't want people to think that, oh, well, all of a sudden he has it all figured out. No, no, no. I've gotten way better, and it's still, I still have my moments, but it's gotten way better, and I really believe it's going to continue to get better. So, but yeah, it's like night and day from, from being an 8-year-old kid to 14 to 22 to 30 to where I am now, 40 today. Yeah, it's been a progression, and that's all. I couldn't ask for anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about just making progress.
Yes, completely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Mike, tell us more about what it is that you do today and what you're doing with the wellness bucket and all of that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the company is called the Wellness Bucket, and it's a company I run that, I mean, in a nutshell, it helps anyone really create daily sustainable health habits, just to feel their best so they can be their best. Because like I mentioned earlier, I believe everyone has greatness within them, but unless we're feeling our best, we'll never really have the ability to tap into that greatness that exists in all of us. So anyways, I run the Wellness Bucket to help people create these daily health habits, and I do that through I have a newsletter that I put out every Friday. I have, Mondays with Mike YouTube channel I do. I have blog posts that I put out. I have a self-guided workshop on the site. And the biggie that I'm really excited about recently is it's exclusive right now to San Diego, but I host fit camps where we focus on movement, because like I said earlier, movement, motion affects emotion, but the fit camps are all about cardio, exercise, stretching, breathing, and then also journaling, like goal setting and also gratitude. But those 5 components, and it's part of the fit camp, again, where people come together, they move, they exercise together, where you have people believing in you, because I saw the effect it had for me. So believing in these people that they can and they will. So these are the fit camps that I currently run in San Diego. But yeah, that's essentially that's where the Wellness Bucket sits today.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I think, what you're doing with the wellness bucket is really great. And, I definitely recommend people go check out your Mondays with Mike videos.
Thank you.
They're always really positive and really inspiring.
Thank you.
Yeah. How often do you do the fit camps?
Yeah, good question. Right now I do them here exclusively in San Diego once per month, and I have one-offs. Like for example, there's another conference coming up in August that it's called the World Domination Summit, where I'll be doing a fit camp there. I just did a fit camp for this retreat in Utah that I was a part of. So I do them sporadically at different events through the country, but the one that I host personally, an ongoing monthly fit camp is right here in San Diego once per month.
All right, great.
Yes.
So if we have some listeners in the San Diego area and they want to check it out, should they just be in touch with you, or do you have information on your website for that?
Yeah, good question. If you go right to thewellnessbucket.com, there's actually a tab on there that says Fit Camp. You can click on it and then enter your name, your email, just to stay updated. So every time there's a Fit Camp coming up, you'll get notified saying, hey, what's going on this day, this time, this place. So yeah, you can definitely stay connected that way.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so Mike, I want to ask you the final question that I have for you today.
Sure.
And that is, given what you know now, if you could go back to when you were going through your tough times and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah. The one piece of advice would be, I think it would have to be that just to believe, and it sounds so simple and cliche, but just to believe in yourself, just to believe in yourself that, there's greatness within you. Like if I could go back, I'd ask myself, I would go back and tell myself, you're awesome. And I would tell myself, like, just because you're not good at this over here doesn't mean you're not good. It takes the focus away on what you are good at. And so I would almost tell myself, hey, focus on what you're good at. Don't worry about the things that you're not good at, because that's what we tend to do. Yeah, I wasn't good in academics. Yeah, I never won a spelling bee. yeah, I didn't do well in math. I still don't. But you know what? Yeah, Mike, you don't do that well, but man, look at these things over here. Look at how you made people laugh. Look at how people want to pick you, to be the football captain. Look how fast you run. Look how good you throw the football. I'd almost want to tell myself, hey, man, don't worry about the things you don't do so well. Focus on the things you really do well and be proud of those damn things, and don't worry about the things that you don't do well. So if I could go back, Melissa, that's what I would do. I would tell myself to not beat myself up for the things I don't do well, and really give myself credit and focus on the things I do well. That's what I would do.
I love that. Yeah. So important to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And to focus on the things that you do well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not underestimate them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah. Awesome. Before we wrap up, what's the best way for people to connect with you? We know about your website. What about social media?
Yeah, I'm on. Definitely you can find me on Twitter, Wellness Bucket on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, The Wellness Bucket. The best way, Melissa, I always say I love. I mean that connecting with people. So feel free to reach out to me. The best way is just shoot me an email. It's mike@thewellnessbucket.com. I reply back to all my emails just because, like I said, I love connecting with people. That is the best way to stay in, to contact me, or just sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get one every Friday of all that's new and great and that I'm offering. So that's two of the best ways, really.
All right, that sounds good. And I will have all your links on the show notes page.
Perfect.
So, Mike, I just want to thank you for coming on here and, for inspiring us, I hope. And
Thank you.
I mean, it's definitely been, it's always an inspiration for me to get to hear from you.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your story. And, hopefully, you'll be a source of inspiration for those listening as well. And they'll go ahead and check out what you're doing and connect with you as well. So, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for everything you're doing and the positive difference you're making in the lives of others. It's really cool. So thank you for everything you do. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that as well. All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the show today. This has been the Grass Gets Greener podcast, episode 73. go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/Mike G to find the links mentioned during this episode or to leave a comment. So one of the things I want to make sure that you take away from this episode is when Mike was talking about how we make sure that we hold on to the beliefs of who we think we are, and we do the things to fulfill that belief. So if we think that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not fill in the blank, then that's going to become kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because that's going to be what we're focusing on. And so it's really important to look at what your beliefs are about yourself and challenge yourself on those if they are negative, and especially if they're beliefs that you have because of what someone else is telling you. And that's where it also becomes really important to surround yourself with the people who do believe in you and who do support you and who are going to encourage you to do more and to be more and to achieve your potential. I mean, the thing is that we are all capable of achieving more, but that's why it's really important, and I encourage you to look at your beliefs about yourself, because it's all going to start there. So I hope that's one thing that you can take away from this episode, and that encourages you and helps you in some way. And I want to invite you to come back next week to listen to Jamie Sivers of A Voice for the Innocent talk about his story of overcoming sexual abuse from his father and the work that he's doing today and how he's able to help others who are going through what he went through and really just raise awareness for the issue and give a voice to them. So be sure to come back and check that one out. And as a reminder, you can go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/audible to get that free audiobook download along with that 30-day free trial if that's something that you're interested in. And of course, also head over to iTunes or Stitcher to leave the show a rating and review so that we can reach as many survivors as possible. And as always, have hope.